Old Testament in the Bible is jam-packed full of different themes that all point back to the greater overarching theme: God has never and will never leave his people. I want to dive in and talk to you today about two different themes that weave their way through the whole of the Old Testament. The first major theme is creation. And if you're anything like I was, you might be saying, but God creates the world only in the first 2 chapters of Genesis. How does that weave through the whole Old Testament? You're right. While God does create the whole world and everything in it just in those first 2 chapters of Genesis, the things he created there continue to be of importance through the rest of the Old Testament. However, God also continues to create new things, revive old things, and make things better. In Genesis 1 through 2, we see the macro creation. Macro creation is just the fancy term that everything there is came to be at this point. God created the heavens and the earth, night and day, the waters, land, sky, birds, fish, and all the creatures of the ground. The last thing he created was mankind. He created us in his own image, calling us to be holy because he is holy. In his book, The Old Testament in 7 Sentences, a small introduction to a vast topic, Wright says, the language of God placing his image, human beings, within creation has temple overtones as well. For that is where the images of the gods were indeed placed, in their temples. With the cosmos functioning as the macro temple of its creator, God places his own image, the living human being, in his temple to dwell with him there. Creation functions as the dwelling place of God, and human beings function as the image of God, ruling and serving creation on his behalf. So, for the rest of the Old Testament and the rest of time, God created the earth to serve as his temple, resting place, and dwelling, and he created mankind to be his image in his temple with him. The other important thing he created at the macro creation was marriage. God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." God then creates a woman to help him in all the tasks God gave him. God then continues to use marriages throughout the Old Testament to complete his work. We see that after God flooded the whole earth, he used a family of marriages, Noah and his wife, their 3 sons, and their wives, to restart humanity. He later uses an old married childless couple to raise up a nation and the bloodline of Jesus Christ. The marriage of Ruth to Boaz was extremely important because their child is an ancestor of the future King David, who is the ancestor of Jesus Christ. These are just a few of the influential marriages in the Old Testament and in the Bible as a whole. Another reason the creation of marriage was so important was that it was a picture or an example of Yahweh's relationship with Israel and later Christ and the church. Looking past the macro creation in Genesis 1 through 2, we see other things that God created in Genesis 3. His creation was an instinctive salvation plan. This salvation plan is important because this will be what allows us to dwell with and walk with God again. Luckily for us today, we know that this redemption plan is the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved, as it says in Romans 10:9. This gives us the opportunity to live forever with our great and mighty God. This redemption plan conquers sin and defeats death, the very things that humankind was plagued with at the fall. We continue to see the promise of this salvation plan when God tells Abraham, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. In Psalm 22, we see a depiction of the death and resurrection of Jesus, and it says, posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people yet unborn, he has done it. So in Micah 5:2, it says, but you, Bethlehem, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. You can find more prophecies about Jesus in 2 Samuel 7:12 through 14, Daniel 7:13 through 14, Leviticus 17:11, and so many others. In Genesis 11:1 through 9, God creates languages. God's command was to be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. The people were supposed to fill the whole earth, spread out. What did they do? They all gathered up in one place and tried to reach heaven. God created languages at this point to make the people spread out and fill the earth, like he commanded. Then, when you look through the Old Testament, you see so many nations in so many places, which was exactly God's plan, minus them having other gods and idols. Mankind is stubborn, and God created this amazing thing in us called free will. We will do what we want, when we want, until we get a nudge or intervention from our sovereign God to be better and do better. God did not intend for us to stay in one spot on the earth. God's intention was for us to enjoy all of his creation in every corner of the world. That is the importance of creating languages and spreading the people out. We see all over the Old Testament that God created Israel to be a revelatory people. They were to be a people that revealed Yahweh to the world. They were the example for the rest of humanity. God created them to be holy, set apart from every other nation. Exodus 19:6 says, "You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Jeremiah 7:23 says, "Obey me, and I will be your God, and you will be my people." Leviticus 20:26 says, "You are to be holy to me because I, the Lord, am holy, and I have set you apart from the nations to be my own." These revelatory people are important because the rest of the world has no idea who Yahweh is. They are doomed to an eternity of suffering because they don't know any better. Israel's job was to be a holy people, showing the rest of the nations of the world that there is a God who is mighty to save, just to forgive, and loving to call each person his own. The second theme I want to cover is that of covenants. This word covenant is just a fancy version of saying a promise. However, the term covenant holds so much more value because it is made with the relationship we have with God. There are many covenants in the Old Testament, but I'm just going to touch on a few. The Adamic covenant is the covenant God made with Adam. This is found in Genesis 3:14 through 19. After Adam and Eve sinned and ate from the tree God commanded them not to, God punishes them and the serpent, but he promises them all that there will be one who comes and defeats sin and death. This covenant is important because we see that God has a purpose for humans even after we fall away from him. It is also important because we can see that God is faithful to keep his promises to us. This promise is kept by the sacrifice of Jesus Christ in the New Testament. The Noahic covenant is one of my favorites to look at because we are reminded of this covenant God made with Noah every time we see a rainbow. If you're anything like me, I am in awe every single time. It's almost as if I'm seeing it for the first time. Like, it is so beautiful and amazing, I just can't help but be amazed by them. In Genesis 8:20 through 9:17, we see God get so repulsed by the evil and depravity of humanity that he sends a flood to destroy the whole earth. In this, he sets apart one righteous man and his family to restart humanity. Noah and the ark are God's token of grace, a sign of his continued involvement with humanity. God says, "I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." This is important because he actually has never done it again. Every time we see a rainbow, we are reminded of God's faithfulness. Probably the most famous covenant of the Old Testament is the Abrahamic covenant. This is found in Genesis 12:15 and 17. God tells Abraham in Genesis 12:1 through 3, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." God says, "Do this," and in turn, "I will do this." That is basically how a covenant works. You both have something you need to uphold. In Genesis 15, God asks Abraham to get a few specific animals, cut them in half, and lay them out with a space in between them. God then walks in between the dead animals, and it basically means if God doesn't uphold his end of the bargain, may he be like these animals. This was how serious God was about growing the nation of Israel and blessing everyone on earth through Abraham and his descendants. Over Christmas time, I was with my boyfriend and his family, and his stepdad was getting upset at his little sister because she kept saying she was going to do something and she never did it. I told her about this covenant and that it was so serious that someone would end up dead if the promise wasn't upheld. She very quickly did that thing she had been telling him she would do. I probably should have told it a little more gently and kid-friendly to a 10-year-old, but nonetheless, God takes our promises seriously. The covenant is important because it shows God's faithfulness to do what he said he was going to do. Israel turns into a great nation, so great in fact that they end up getting enslaved for fear of taking over Egypt, and that you can find in Exodus 1:7 through 14. He was also faithful to bless all people through Abraham by bringing the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. These are just two examples of different themes that run through the Old Testament. I encourage you to look for more, study them, and figure out how they play into God's greater story of the whole Old Testament and the Bible.